This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
I'm Chuck Norris, and I approve this game.
Between the time when gamers played with miniatures and chainmail and the rise of the Wizards of the Coast, there was an age of advanced role-playing undreamed of. And onto the Gygax, destined to bear the jeweled crown of TSR upon a troubled brow, it was given to teach us all how to roll for initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
This is the Roll for Initiative podcast. This is a special insert for volume number 3. This is special insert number 8. I am DM Vince. I'm kind of sitting alone. The usual voices aren't here with me this week, as we're sitting in here on Sunday after the Gen Con is over for 2013. But I do have a familiar voice from the past, DM Jason.
Hey Vincent, how you doing?
Good, Jason. How you been?
Been really good. I'm tired. 4 days of Gen Con and I'm on the road, so doing good though.
Yeah, and you just were at Gen Con selling the new Gygax number 2 as well.
Yeah, a few booths were real. We didn't have our own booth there, but Troll Lords and the OSR booth and Dwarven Forge were all very gracious and carried the magazine for us. So,
that was very nice of them. Awesome.
Yeah, that was really nice of them.
And we'll get to that in just a minute to talk about a little bit more about Gygax number 2. But back in March, the fans had voted on who our next guest should be on the podcast, and the fans stepped up and they all chose Luke Gygax, who happens to be with us right now. Luke.
Hey Vince, how are you doing?
Good, Luke. So, for those not familiar with who you are, which should probably be like a 2% people in our audience, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Luke?
Well, I would definitely say this audience is much more likely than a random sampling of the population of the United States to know who I am, but I am the youngest son of Gary Gygax from his first marriage. I do have a younger brother, Alex, as well. But I'm one of Gary's sons, and I'm also a publisher of Gygax magazine. I'm here today to talk to you about growing up Gygax and, of course, Gygax magazine itself.
Well, we have a bunch of questions for you, but we'll get to those at the end of the show from all the fans out there that wanted to hear certain stories about how things worked back in the day and how you came up with things with your father. So we'll get to that in a little bit. What I want to do is just quickly go over some of the things about the magazine. And I wanted to hear from you guys how it was creating number 2 and the steps that you went through for getting number 2 out there as compared to number 1. Looking back, did you do things a little bit differently? There's the things that you tried that are a little bit better for going forward to 3 that you're going to try. Anyone you want to handle that one?
Well, sure, I'll jump in on it. The first one was our first issue. I've been kind of calling it our pilot issue. It was the one where we kind of got our act together and learned all of the difficult things there are about putting a gaming magazine out. And I'm sure nobody listening is unaware of the fact that it took us a while to get number 2 going. And I just want to start off right by saying we've learned a lot about how to set our schedules and get everything in at the right time. So we are on a regular schedule going on out from here on out. So the next one will be at October 30th, and then every 3 months after that. Really, it was just a whole lot of things about. There's a lot to running a business itself that you need to kind of get in process. Get processes in place. Really. That's what we've done. I don't know. As far as different, I'm really happy with the artists that we have this time. I'm happy with the ones last time. I think we've stepped it up. I think we've stepped it up in terms of content. And of course, we've got a couple of great adventures in here. And the special attraction, of course, is the Blighted Lands. It's a preview of Adventure World that Luke's been working on and is continuing to build.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to that when we get into that article, because there's a great pull-out of a piece of the map and a part of the actual city, which really looks cool. But we start off with the article for the tactics and the samurai battles, which, Jason, you spoke about the last time on about issue 1. You gave us a sneak preview about that.
Well, yeah, it's real important, as we go forward with the magazine, to make sure that people don't think this is RPG only.
Mm-hmm.
We are about gaming in many of its forms, tabletop gaming. So we're going to be always running things with miniatures, board games, role playing, etc. And Tim Kask, of course, is our contributing editor, and many people will know him as the founder of the Dragon magazine, and very important early contributor and part of creating Dungeons and Dragons itself.
Absolutely. And he does writes up a wonderful article about the samurai battles and how to handle that. I'm not going to spoil for anyone who's interested in that, which there are quite a few people that were.
Well, I can give the line at the beginning, which is always have a path of retreat open, and kill the shooters. So there you go. There's all the tactics you need. Kill the shooters.
Absolutely.
That's sound advice in any scenario.
And there's a really cool article right after that by Ernest Gary Gygax Jr. Call him Ernie. The Evolution of Wargame to Role-Playing. I really like this article, really cool. Kind of like that whole, I was sitting there and his point of view talking to Gary and how things just changed over slowly. I really did enjoy this article. I'm really glad you guys had him write this article. I think a lot of people will really enjoy how things worked back then.
Yeah, Ernie has a lot better recall and insight on some of those very formative days, months, and years. Because I was pretty young. I was like 4 and 5 years old during this time period. 3 when my dad was writing D&D. So my recall is not going to be quite as accurate, and I'm not going to have as much of substance to say as Ernie does about the early days. And he does an outstanding job, but absolutely he captures what I just take for granted is how gaming goes, as far as you're always getting soaked in one way or another, your characters, to fleece them out of their money, whether it's recharging items, paying for training, researching spells, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that as the DM, you want to keep it interesting. You want to provide motivation for those adventurers to get them up, get them going, and make it challenging. So if you're flush with cash, that may not always be the case. But if you're, oh geez, I have this castle now and all these henchmen and upkeep, and I want to recharge these things, I need to go on this big adventure and earn some more gold. So it really, I think that's how a lot of that came about. Is a lot of those were methods of keeping it interesting, fresh, and providing motivation in the early days of gaming.
Absolutely. Let me get a little sneak preview of how Tensor came about and how he went from a neutral alignment to good alignment. But I don't want to spoil that little story because it's really cool. But I wasn't aware that's how you guys were playing as a neutral, and then later on you kind of just drifted towards the alignment that you wanted to be, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. When I was playing my characters, more so, it was more towards AD&D a little bit. I mean, tail end of, when AD&D was being developed, that's when I have stronger memories and more formative experiences. And I pretty much was, you had an alignment, and if you changed, there was penalties for it. So, unless it was some sort of item that forced you to change or whatever it was.
Right.
But it wasn't fluid.
Right. Skip ahead. We have another article, a Doctor Who article in here about adventures in time and space with some interesting creatures. I'm not really familiar with the Doctor Who game. Jason, are you a little more familiar with that game?
No, I actually don't play it, but I found the article fascinating. And what happens for me a lot is I'll read an article that's, maybe some extra items or adventures or something for a game that I don't play, and it'll kind of catch my imagination and make me want to play that game. And that happened here for sure.
Oh, wow, okay.
What's kind of neat is that Jay Libby here has taken the Doctor Who game and given it a different Douglas Adamsian flavor, and come up with some of his own things. They're all his own creations, but set in that sort of universe. It's a very fun, kind of whimsical bit of stuff.
Interesting. And then we get a really cool article, which I looked at this article and I said, this article has Jason written all over it. The Len Lakofka article about the death and dying and different ways that how I never even thought of things like this. If you're dead or below 0 hit points, that you could still possibly move around or talk or do actions.
So this is Leomund's Secure Shelter, and Len Lakofka was one of the very first people that we recruited for the magazine. I just couldn't imagine doing Gygax magazine without having Len Lakofka in there. He is the master of really getting gritty with those tables and thinking about that kind of stuff. So you can imagine, me being me and liking those kind of tables, that Len was, way up there on my list. And same thing, he came up with I never thought about, my character's dying, he's down to -1 hit points, but in that last minute, is he going to be able to hide that scroll in his robe? Is he going to be able to get that last spell off? And, Len really studies up on this and thinks about it very deeply and comes up with some great approaches for it.
Absolutely. I literally blew my mind reading this article going, whoa, I never thought of that's some great possibilities to bring into the game now.
Well, use it in your game and let us know how it goes.
Absolutely. And then we skip over to an article by John Peterson, Forgotten Grimoire and His Curse, which really talks a lot about D&D and Blackmore-related stuff. I read most of this article and was like, this guy really knows what he's talking about.
If you haven't grabbed up Playing at the World, and I'm assuming you're interested in gaming and the history and the formation. I mean, it's worth it. It's a long book. He goes into great detail. Sometimes it's a little dull, to be honest with you, but it's great material, and he has really done his research. And he's talking about the Dalun manuscript or whatever, which is in this article, which is possibly a precursor to the first set of D&D rules. It's somehow a hybrid or homebrew or something between Dave Arneson's group and my dad's group in Lake Geneva, kind of something in between Blackmore and D&D. And he's trying to discuss that. That's of great interest to John. I chatted with him a little bit at GaryCon about that, and he's definitely a gaming scholar. He takes this stuff seriously.
Yeah, I think you pronounced that right, actually, Dalun. John was at Gen Con this year, and I got time to hang out with him quite a bit, which was great, because I really like him. I like having a chance to hang around. He's, like Luke said, he's an amazing scholar of this stuff, and he's just got such a deep love for gaming. And I think it just really gets him going when he can find those artifacts and those things that fill in the gaps in the story. One of the things that he said to me when we were at dinner the other night was that he, one of his just driving forces is to establish as much veracity in the timeline of role-playing gaming, tabletop gaming, as possible. And he's putting a lot of effort into that and helping other people do it too. And this is one of those things. He's found this manuscript, and you're just kind of trying to figure out, well, what's the provenance of this? And you've got to deal with people's own memories, which can sometimes be fuzzy, at best. And so he does a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Almost like forensics, going in and he's like, well, I can see what kind of typewriter this was done on, and obviously, this was typeset. It wasn't just done randomly by somebody. There was a secretary or somebody involved, or a professional typist, so there must have been a reason for it. It wasn't just somebody's, he just gets into all of that, and it's fascinating to read.
Absolutely, and if you want to hear more about him, he was on the Save or Die podcast 3 or 4 times, actually, in the last couple months, talking about his book, and as well as talking about the early editions of D&D. So check them out, saveordie.info.
Yeah, but I agree. If anybody is interested in the definitive history of gaming, Playing at the World, definitely it.
Definitely. And then we jump over to an article by Jess Hartley, which I'm familiar with her. She was pretty... Back when I was spoken to her the last time, she was a heavy freelancer for White Wolf, and now she does for everything now, but she writes a really cool article about gamer etiquette and social introductions, which made me laugh and giggle throughout half of it, and then say to myself, oh, this is so true, for the other half of it, about how people just kind of ignore the whole introductions now.
Yeah, yeah. No, Jess is great. She's signed on as a regular feature, so we'll be seeing some cool stuff every time. And we're actually going to be asking people to kind of send in ideas for things that they'd like her to talk about. But you can always go to our Facebook page and find out about that stuff.
Oh, cool. And then Brian Pope brings us a really cool article about Mage Wars. I've never actually tried Mage Wars, but he goes into some really good tactics about the game, how to build it, and how to actually it's pre-game tactics before even playing the game.
Yeah, well, there was tons of people playing Mage Wars at Gen Con, and this is what I was talking about. That we're not only covering role playing, right. So Mage Wars is a battle game between two mages, and a lot of fun, and of course, just great advice in there on how to play.
Did you get into any Mage War games, or you just kind of observed?
I had a chance to play a grand total of 2 games the whole 4 days, but they were both great. But they were older games. I got to play some Nuclear War, which is always good, and with Rick Loomis, which is yeah. I mean, come on, not the creator of Nuclear War, but the guy who runs who puts. Yes, Flying Buffalo. Thank you. And then just a fun game of Car Wars. So that's all I got to play. Just some cool old school stuff.
And then we have Heroes, Kings, and Champions: Ordinary Characters in Fantastic Worlds by Ken St. Andre, which I thought was kind of interesting. Just taking the average everyday character and just giving them the story as opposed to the hero or the villain. So it's really
it's interesting. I was listening to a lecture by I forget this professor's name, but he does lecture series that you can get through audiobook, and he does one on the history of sci-fi fiction or literature, and he does another really long series on the history of fantasy literature. And one of the things that he identifies as being sort of a defining characteristic of fantasy literature, as opposed to, say, a Greek myth, because in a Greek myth you've got heroes fighting monsters too, but in fantasy literature it's not just the kings and the gods anymore. Now it's Frodo. Now it's now it's the Grey Mouser. Now it's somebody who's human level. And you can relate to them. And so I think that's kind of where Ken St. Andre was going. And of course, Ken St. Andre, the creator of Tunnels and Trolls, so he's a great voice and part of the history of the hobby as well.
A lot of people seem to be getting into the Tunnels and Trolls I know it's been out for years and years and years, but it seems like it's just really popped up and flourished in the last couple of years. So I'm happy about that.
Well, Luke, I don't know if you know more than me on this or what, but I think Tunnels and Trolls was kind of the first competitor to Dungeons and Dragons, wasn't it?
It was. It was not well received in the Gygax household. Yeah. So Tunnels and Trolls is a curse word when I was growing up. So yes, that was a copy or a knockoff of Dungeons and Dragons. To the best of my knowledge, I've never played. I've never picked up the rule set, so just my understanding of the system.
I've never played it either. But reading John Peterson's book is as much as I actually know. But I've never played it, but I always kind of got the impression that it was one that was simplified in some ways, and I don't really know.
Yeah, that's kind of my understanding as well. I haven't picked it up, but hell, if somebody was running it and I had some time, I would play.
Yeah. Oh, this next article is by some fool.
Yeah.
No, I just skipped past that one.
Yeah.
I who does he think he is, right?
It's a great article, actually.
Thank you.
I'll introduce the next article. It's by Vincent Florio. Why don't you tell us about your article, man?
Well, first of all, it cracked me up, the picture at the top there, the ranger, or the fighter, I should say, pulling the ladder out of that little tiny box because the rope broke. And they have to climb up. And I was thinking, I remember an episode we did when you were talking about that, actually. It's just like, how do I get the 10-foot pole in the dungeon? You're like, just pull it out of that little magical box. And I was like, oh, Jason must have remembered that, or someone heard it and drew that. I don't know.
Yeah, Barry James was the artist on this. He's really great.
I forgot exactly how this article came about, but it was James, your editor, was talking to me, James Carpio, and he was saying he needed an old school Renaissance type article And I was like, well, I have something written up about introduction to the OSR. And he's like, well, let me take a look at it. And he's like, okay, this is pretty cool. Can you expand upon it? So after a couple more writing phases, I gave it back to him, and he said this was great. Talks about getting into the OSR, what products you should pick up off the web, such as what the free products are, what the products you can buy, how to set up for the game, how to consider each possibility in the game, what different rolling methods in the game, and that's pretty much it. And
It's a very good read.
It was a solid article.
Well, thank you. And then we go to a really cool Cthulhu-type article called Weird Vibrations by Jeffrey Talon. I'm not sure. Talanian. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and he's the
great guy.
Creator of the Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea.
And he was the lead designer, along with my dad, on his last works with his Castle Zaggig stuff before it was discontinued. But so Jeff worked with my dad closely for a long time, and that's how I was introduced to him. And a really great guy, even though he is a Patriots fan.
I guess you can forgive for certain things, right?
That's right. That's saying a lot, though.
Yeah, true. Very interesting article. I'm not going to really get into the details of it. And then we have a really cool article about the Incubus.
Yes, for Savage Worlds.
Savage Worlds are really cool. I don't know, Jason, if you ever played Savage Worlds, but it's a really cool system.
have. The only time I ever have played it is at Recess, and Nerd NYC's Recess that they do 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Played it there and had a blast.
It's a really cool game that's very customizable for anything that you can think of. Just about.
Yeah, it's very story-based. It's very narrative and very, very role-playing heavy. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely, and this talks about this creature for the Savage Worlds, and won't ruin that surprise. And then we get to this article from this Luke guy. I don't know who he is, who thinks he is. Anyway, talking about the Blighted Lands, the feature campaign here in this magazine with the wonderful pullout. Tell me, how'd you get this pullout? I don't know, what made you decide to do it like that, Jason? You trying to throw back to the old magazines, or?
Well, I don't know if the Dragon did this particular thing, but I mean, it really was just in order to make it fit right. So I'll let Luke talk about the art and working with Stefan, but I'll just mention that Stefan Pokorny, who's the owner of Dwarven Forge, if anybody plays with those amazing 3D tile sets, which you can actually, they just did this Kickstarter, so they now have a slightly less expensive version that's made with, he calls it Indestructible Dwarvenite. It actually is. It is really nice stuff. When I went over and saw the Dwarven Forge, that they, because it was the first time I'd seen it in person, and I thought it was the original stuff. I was like, "Oh, didn't you bring the new, cheaper stuff?" And they're like, "No, this is it." Whoa. But yeah, the thing is that I've known Stefan for a while, and I've been over to his place, and I've seen his artwork, and I've seen these maps that he does for himself, and they're just amazing, this beautiful, intricate map work, and I just thought we really need to, bring him in on this. And so when he did this with Luke, after I saw what he'd done, I said, there's just no way that we can put this on a regular 2-page with a staple in the middle. It's got to fold out so people can, photocopy it and really see it, and give it justice.
He did both maps, front and back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing. So let's skip to more about Okorum, as you phonetically spell it out for us. Am I saying that right, Luke?
Okorum? Or we call it Okorim, however you want to say it is fine. Hopefully it'll be a word you use and tailor to making it easy for you to say. But it came about from a desire for me to do a little something at GaryCon and do an original adventure. I figured, well, what the heck, it's GaryCon 5. I should probably come up with an adventure. And I sat down and started scratching my head over things to do. And I decided, well, maybe it would help me if I had an idea of what kind of world this was that I was going to do this one-shot adventure for. So I sat down and started thinking of world ideas or setting ideas. And so I kind of started big and had narrowed it down a little bit for a tournament adventure. But I decided that something that folks maybe don't pay that much attention to these days, but could be interesting, especially in a tournament, would be environmental challenges, and obviously my experiences as a soldier in operating in really hot, horrible environments, wearing body armor and that sort of thing, definitely influenced my decision to write about a miserable, hot, desolate place called the Blighted Lands. And so yeah, the idea is that you're going to take characters from an established campaign. Maybe you run a few adventures with your guys and you hit a level or whatever, and you want to throw a little curveball at your guys. You can have them adventure over to the continent of Okrim, arrive at the city of Shentufi, which is a huge ancient city with architecture that's amazing, that can't be duplicated with the current world's technology or level of magical understandings. So it's truly a wonder. And then, of course, when they venture inland and hit the Blighted Lands, that's when they're going to get hit with some of those challenging surprises from the environment that's going to make them have to think and adjust to adapt and overcome the environment, or possibly die, but more likely get take some negative modifiers that's going to hurt them later on in their adventures until they learn the lesson on how to cope. Obviously, at a certain level or with certain prep and certain items, you could use magical ways of getting around that, but that wasn't the goal, especially for this tournament. It was to challenge players to use their mind and figure out a way to get around this non-traditional logistical challenge that I put out there. So that's kind of how I came up with the idea, and I enjoyed it so much, and I just started thinking about why is this, and coming up with some races and creature ideas and things like that. I just really enjoyed the flavor, and I said, well, I've done this much with it. Maybe I should take a shot at doing a setting and introducing this to other folks and seeing if they like it. And so Jason saw the module that I did for Gary Con. I did just a short 100-copy release there that was only available at Gary Con, and it was pretty well received. And he enjoyed it, and he said, "Hey, let's go ahead and get this in issue number 2 as a feature." So I modified some ideas that I had, and voila, here we are with Gygax Magazine number 2, the Blighted Lands, Adventuring in the Lands of Okrim, which will soon be followed by actual module.
Yes, I saw that. It said BL1, The Blighted Lands, will come up, right? A TSR Adventure module. Oh, okay.
Yes. So we're going to get our feet wet and get to publishing some game material out there for everyone. And I know not to look forward too much, but issue number 3 will have my brother Ernie's dungeon that I adventured in extensively in the 70s, 80s, and even the 2000s. He's been working on that and modifying it and getting it ready for publication. And there'll be a sneak peek of that, I believe, in issue number 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason.
There sure will.
Yep. And one would imagine that would be a possible publication as well down the road.
Exactly. That's what we're planning to do. So I think that people want to have a chance to buy these and put them into their worlds and be a part of it. So that's what we're going to get out there. Don't have a timeline on it yet, but that is coming down the pike.
And the Blighted Lands are compatible with your favorite fantasy adventure game of your choosing, I would assume.
You can play it with first edition AD&D.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Absolutely. That's how I envision playing it. That's how I play it, is first edition AD&D. But of course, I think as with any AD&D type system, you could modify it to work with many others relatively easily.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing throughout Gygax Magazine. There's a lot of different systems, and Vince, I'm sure you know all of them, and you've talked about enough of them on the show. But there's so many systems that are in that basic realm, and some of them start. Like I know Hackmaster is starting to kind of go off a little bit on its own path and things like that. But there's so many systems that are roughly compatible with that, Adventure Conqueror King, etc., that rather than trying to say, well, this one versus that one, if you're working within the general framework, anybody who's playing any of those types of systems knows enough to be able to adjust where it's necessary.
Absolutely, yeah. I can adjust this for just about any game. And speaking about the Blighted Lands, there's a little adventure in here, which is really cool. And that's a nice little hook for the characters helping out one of the NPCs, have to go into the Blighted Lands to find the Fire Scorpion and bring back a piece of the Fire Scorpion for him to mix a potion. The Fire Scorpion, I went, oh my god, what a deadly creature that is. Holy cow, that thing can jump so far and attack people without them even realizing they're being attacked. And I was thinking, this is going to be a great monster to bring in to kill my group. I mean, use for my group. Tell me a little about the Fire Scorpion, how you came up with that concept of him. And
I'd said, well, geez, I needed something for the outdoor portion of the adventure for the tourney module. And I said, well, what would be fun? And I was like, okay, well, giant scorpions are always fun. And everyone likes to save versus poison, right? Or die. So
definitely.
So I said, okay, giant scorpions. And, of course, there was a fire theme to the tourney module. So I had a couple other ideas for names. Through playtesting, people thought Fire Scorpion just worked the best. So I went with that as opposed to like an Arabic-style name that meant something similar to that. And the idea is that the poison would feel like fire jetting through your bloodstream when you got hit with it. It was so deadly when it was save versus poison or die that I had to modify it to a damage accumulation and put out some antidote in the scenario. Otherwise, it tended to kill off too many players. So I did actually want people to get through the tournament and not all just die fighting the Fire Scorpions.
Oh, that's not the point, to kill everybody? I thought that was.
No, I did like I like the jumping portion just because that always helps. It always, you want to throw somebody, throw them for a loop. And what's more fun than getting your creatures behind the ranks of the meat shields and into the spellcasters? So that's why they jump.
Yeah, give the players a heart attack as this thing comes flying out of nowhere and crushes your mage.
Exactly. So that's why I always played a fighter magic user.
Yeah, well, that helps.
Yeah, I did a lot of solo adventuring, so that and potions of healing and just waiting long periods of time to heal. That's how I played Melf most of the time.
Now, for this full campaign, I assume you guys will put out eventually. What more can we see from this world? What things would you like to introduce players to, or gamers, I should say, not the players? Sure.
Basically, the backstory is generally it was a verdant, green land. A millennia ago, there was powers released onto the lands. How that happened is the stuff of legends, whether it was an internal struggle, an experiment gone wrong, whatever the case may have been, which may be revealed later. Powerful forces were unleashed that scarred and destroyed the land, turning what was once, beautiful waterways and forests and stuff into this horrible blackened, black glass cracked environment in the interior of Okran. And the folks, the Idrisid Empire is what that civilization was called. And they were powerful mages who had harnessed elemental powers to their use and regularly used elementals to build their buildings, power, for lack of a better word, technologies, items that would assist, were powered by elemental magics. And of course, with the fall of the Idrisid Empire through the Wrath, this knowledge has been lost. Most of the cities are buried deep in the Blighted Lands, beneath the black sands, buried deep, or so far in the interior, and it's so dangerous that few, if any, have ever adventured to them. So what is in there is obviously lost artifacts and all sorts of knowledge and treasures that people are going to want to get their hands on. The city of Shentufi, which is the largest city, hundreds of thousands of people, is a wonder in and of itself. As I said, it's got these amazing structures, these domes, onion dome towers and skylines that are not replicated anywhere else in the world because of the magics that were widely used by the Idrisid Empire. And this is the one surviving city that was on the coast. Of course, totally different peoples are there now and are occupying it, but the structures are the same, and they can't. If something breaks, they can't fix it. So it's kind of an interesting environment. There's lots of various factions. So I don't know. Think of a large city like Longmar or even Greyhawk or something of that nature, and that's what you have there. And then you have some outdoor adventuring going on. There's various tribes and interesting stuff in the desert and flora and fauna, and of course, buried deep in the Blighted Lands, there are all sorts of interesting creatures, magics, treasures, and ways to interact with various elemental and demonic powers that are well established there, as the veil between the worlds, between the planes, is much thinner in these areas.
Cool. And we'll see the Blighted Lands in BL1 come out as a full adventure module. But can we see some, like, a box set coming out, or what would you envision this, like, is it a throwback to how we used to send out the old box sets from the 80s, or Jason, maybe you can further answer, is this going to be one of those hardcover book with a map inside of it type thing? Either one of you guys want to field that one?
Well, if I have my druthers, and I would see this as a box set, especially because Stefan is highly motivated and awesome. His mapping is on another level. I was blown away when he started sending me what he was doing. Really great, and he does not think small. He wants to map out the entire city, street by street, building by building.
Wow!
So I could see.
He sent us this photo that showed what you see in this issue of the magazine is like a tenth of what he's got up on the wall right now.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
Yeah. He plans on. I mean, he could see this in his mind. It's an 8x8 map up on your wall, of city. So I could definitely see this as possibly being published in bite-sized, chunks, just time and effort-wise and everything, so that folks could see the various, city portions and adventures, and then of course some modules that would deal with, outdoor or other type scenarios as well, and then a box set for the city, and perhaps some hardbounds of related modules and that sort of thing.
That would be really cool, actually, piece by piece map, so you can actually get a piece and then next thing get another piece, put it next to the original piece, start building your own map. That'd be really cool, actually. I like that idea. Anything else you want to tell us about these lands?
Not right at the moment. I just, I'm sure we'll follow up with some additional material in other Gygax magazines with some additional monsters and vegetation and just additional info to help flesh out for folks who are wanting to start running it right away until we get the first module out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because this is a whole campaign world, so it's going to have plenty of time to grow and flesh out and have other things happen within it.
Absolutely. Okay. We move on a little bit ahead, and we got another. We have an article about the One Ring game, the Hare and the Hill Giant. I've never played the One Ring game at all, but
well, as you might guess, it's a Tolkien-based world.
Really? Is it? I didn't know that.
Shane Ivey. He's Shane Ivey from Arc Dream.
Yes.
And really great guy. Amazing writer. It's a huge, meaty piece. The One Ring is a very story-based kind of system, so it really focuses a lot on the stories around these trolls. I better not say too much about them because I would spoil the stuff that's in there, but there's also some great allies and adversaries at the back as well, so there's some good meaty stuff in this for players of the One Ring.
And then we get over to the Kobold's Cavern by Wolfgang Bauer, but actually edited by Wolfgang and written by Eric Hindley.
Well, a number of people. So I mean, just to kind of repeat, because I don't know if everybody knows, but since Wolfgang decided to focus entirely on Kobold Press and not publish Kobold Quarterly, the magazine, anymore, we really just felt that it was such a good magazine, we wanted to see something of it keep on going. So we worked with Wolfgang to create the section that he edits. Right. And so he has three stories three articles in this section. The first one is for Super Science and Fantasy games, is specifically for I'm rushing quickly to see which system it was for.
It was
Pathfinder. It's the Pathfinder game.
Yeah.
I don't play Pathfinder, so sometimes I don't recognize right away which it is. But it's really fun because it's got that sort of Expedition to the Barrier Peaks kind of feel of putting science tech in there. And he has published that one article as OGL so that other people can use that content in their own products.
I really enjoyed this article. As soon as I read this article, I started translating everything to first edition.
Yeah, no, that's the nice thing about it is that you can translate. And vice versa. Pathfinder players can take the Blighted Lands and translate it into theirs as well.
Oh, yeah, very simple to do all that information. I know some people have some trouble doing that, and we had some shows on the past how to translate things back and forth. Just go listen to those episodes.
Do you know off the top of your head which ones they are?
No. Sorry.
And I thought you knew your show.
Jason, we have 120-something issues, along with how many Gen Con specials we did and special inserts, so sorry.
But those are good ones to go back to, because I think that's a really important thing, is the skill of translating from system to system.
Yeah, we've done it from 3rd edition to back, 2nd edition, and as well as Pathfinder, so we've just tried to cover it all for everybody. And there's another article Dueling Through the Ages. I like how you
Which is for AGE system.
Yeah, I like how you did that. That was cool. Well, he did that, I should say.
Oh, he did that. Yes,
yeah.
This is Wolfgang's section. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm going to think about how I can use that in D&D games, because dueling is such a great thing in game. It's a great way, especially if you've only got 2 players maybe that are there for the day. You want to, let's just have a duel. And he goes into all the different types of duels there have been, historically, and gives rules for different types.
It really does flesh out things, because I didn't think of half the ideas that he put in here, and I was like, I got to start using those, like you said. Definitely. Yeah,
this is the second article that Rodrigo has written for the Kobold's Cavern, and I just think he's awesome. I hope he continues in every issue.
And then we have the Lost Wonders of, is that Kelamarth?
Kelmarath, I think is how it's pronounced. So Midgard is a new setting from Paizo, and this is some things from that setting. So it's some cool artifacts and stuff from Midgard.
Excellent. And then we have Full Frontal Nerdity.
Yes, I'm really excited to have Aaron in this issue, and I'm actually just going back and double checking here. I think with Midgard, I just don't want to get it wrong.
Okay.
Midgard might actually be by Kobold Press. I'm looking here. The Midgard campaign setting is copyrighted by Open Design LLC, so I think it's just that they had it at the Paizo booth this week, so I might be mixing things up. I apologize for that. But anyways, so Full Frontal Nerdity. Aaron Williams is such an amazingly prolific artist and writer. He, is going to be known to some people for his comic Nodwick in Dragon Magazine. Might also know him for, now I'm forgetting the name of the PS 120. Am I getting the number wrong? Which is sort of a School for Mutants, superpowers kind of thing, and many others. And then Full Frontal Nerdity is normally his 3-panel daily webcomic, and I am such a fan of it. I read it every day, and I asked him, rather than necessarily bringing Nodwick back for this, which actually kind of requires a little bit more of a ongoing storyline and the kind of thing you'd want to see in a monthly anyways.
Yeah.
I was like, well, could you take Full Frontal Nerdity and kind of give it a little bit of a Nodwick approach? In other words, let's go into the game with the characters. And he just graciously obliged. He said, yeah, that's a great idea. I can go in with that. And off he goes. He's such... he was here at Gen Con, so we got a chance to hang out and go for drinks, and his brain goes 100 miles an hour all the time. He's got a new idea every other sentence, and I can see why he's so prolific. And he was telling me about his stacks of ideas that he's just going to have to find some other artist to do, because he can only draw so fast.
Yeah. This absolutely cracked me up, because it reminded me of one of the groups I've played with in the past, and I'm not going to ruin it for anyone because it's really funny.
Yeah.
So, but We Slay It, You Nosh It. That cracked me up. And then we do our wonderful, awesome Order of the Stick and how random NPC monsters are formed.
I gotta say, we're really blessed to have Rich Burlew, signed up for a nice haul on our back pages. We've got exclusive Order of the Sticks that you can only get in Gygax magazine. Although I'd be happy if he decided to put them in one of his book compilations in the future, because I think everything he does is top quality. So
absolutely. And that's it. And that's the front to start. Issue 2 is complete, Jason. It'll be in people's hands in a matter of a couple of days, depending when they listen to this.
It depends. The magazines are all actually shipping from Florida on Tuesday, so depending on the type of shipping people have chosen, if people who have free shipping, it can take 5 to 10 days, because subscribers we give free shipping for as an option. People who bought the priority shipping, it might be there quicker. We're doing our best, and we want to make everybody... I'm very happy that people are always eager to get it. So,
I guess some people are asking, is there any chance of getting some cheaper overseas rates in the future? Because I know it's often asked to us about it. So,
that's a weird one. I've been trying to think about this because, if you try to buy a magazine from Italy and get it in America, you're not going to. They're not going to send it for $2. It's unfortunate fact of the Postal Service that they charge quite a lot for reliable delivery. We kind of had a choice here that we could either go with, not very cheap. We could go with slightly less expensive rates that would. Apparently, we had a lot of people whose stuff got lost last time when we went with the less expensive shipping, because they don't give it the priority. And I don't want people's these are magazines that people are really wanting, so I don't want them to get mangled in the mail or worse, not show up. So rather than complicate issues, we've just made it simple and said we're going to offer the priority shipping. At some point in the future, if we can find a way to have a distributor who's based in Europe that we can drop ship to or something like that, we'd love to do it. But I don't really want to make promises because it is a physical object that has to travel across the Atlantic Ocean, a third of the way across the entire globe where all humans live. So it's a difficult thing.
If we could get our subscribership up to a few 100,000, though, I think we could probably come up with some cheaper shipping options.
So, listeners, can you please get 100,000 of your friends?
Yes. Just each one of you just go out and tell 100 of your friends, and we'll be good.
And they tell 100 of their friends. And
they'll tell 100 of their friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember, buy Amway.
Yikes. All right, anyway, so there's that question, because a lot of people were asking that, and unfortunately that's the answer for now.
I do want to say that it is available as a PDF on Drive-Thru-RPG. So, I really prefer a physical magazine, and I know our readers do too, and I understand that. But at least you can get the content through Drive-Thru-RPG.
Excellent. So now, Luke, as we're moving over to you back again here, I have about 10 best questions by our fans that wanted to hear from you directly about some things in the past, whatever's going on in your life. Are you ready for some good questions here?
Sure, fire away.
Absolutely. Okay, first question from DM Dwayne in the OSR Gaming forums. He wants to know, what is your favorite class to play and why?
All right, DM Dwayne, thanks for asking the question. And I would have to say that a fighter magic user is my favorite to play. Obviously, Melf, the character I played the most with my dad, was a fighter magic user, and that combination is probably the best one to solo adventure with. And you have to remember, my brother Ernie's 11 years older than me, so he was pretty much grown and gone by the time I was doing a lot of adventuring, from 7, 8 years old on. So I would end up soloing a fair amount with my dad during the week, because I would sit in his office and pester him until he would take me on adventures, and I would play Melf. And with the fighting and magic using, you got enough hit points, you got a little bit of the artillery. You can only take one action at a time, of course, but that gave me the best options and most adaptability. But I did have to sit around and spend a long time healing up. Especially going through Sajkamp, which is one of my favorite modules, so a little aside. But I went through pretty much solo through most of Sajkamp with Melf, and it took quite some time, long period, probably a year or more of game time for me to do that, with all the healing that I had to sit around and do. But that's my favorite character, Fighter Magic User.
Cool. DM Kojo would love to hear your experiences about working with the Gamma World module GW1 Legion of Gold, and which you wrote with Gary. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I think it's a little bit generous to say that I wrote it with him. I believe this was in 1980, so I was probably 9 years old, and I got the motivation, the inspiration for the idea for the main villains by watching Super Friends cartoon. There was some guys in glowing armor, and that were glowing anyway. And so I was talking to my dad, said, well, we should have some guys with glowing powered armor and this sort of stuff. And so he said, okay. And he started writing down a few things and bouncing them off me back and forth a little bit. And it ended up being GW1. Obviously, the lands and all that sort of stuff are just named, named for where we lived. The barony of Horn is Elkhorn, and I think there's some other names there that are basically Wisconsin, southeastern Wisconsin-based names. But that's how that came about. So I was very young, and I gave him some of the ideas, and then he talked to me about them and fleshed them out. But he did the writing on that sort of thing. At 9 years old, I was not behind the typewriter knocking that out.
Cool. Angelic Doctor wants to know, can you tell us about Bug'em and who came up with that name?
Bug'em, I don't recall a specific story that came up that revolves around developing the name Bug'em. However, it kind of fits with I think the vision that my dad had, particularly at that time, with Gamma World or future post-apocalyptic future stuff. With Gamma World, there's Wolfoids and this sort of thing. So it's kind of taking a normal name and twisting it a little bit. This was also the case in one of his favorite sci-fi stories. I don't know if it was favorite, but certainly one that impacted Gamma World a bit. Sterling Lanier's Hiero's Journey. There's like a horse moose cross. It's called a morse and things of that nature. So I think it's just taking a common term, adjusting it a little bit, and making it into a mutated creature. So sorry, I don't have a more colorful story for you, but I think it just fit with how he saw naming things, and Bug'em is fun to say.
Okay. And Boov wants to know, what are your feelings about the OSR movement?
Obviously, I'm a big proponent of old school gaming. I have nothing against new school gaming and that sort of stuff. I'm for gaming in general, but I know that I certainly play first edition. Still is my choice. It's what I cut my teeth on, and it's where I have the most enjoyment. I'm most comfortable with. I've played third edition, a little bit of Pathfinder. I tried fourth edition one time. I've certainly played various other systems as well throughout the years. But I just am most comfortable with 1E because you can tailor it, and it's light, it's flexible. I know the rules. I don't so there's a certain level of comfort, and then a certain level of really you are. As a DM, it's your tale, and you're forming it with the characters and keeping it moving. Whereas I think in some other systems, there's or other more complex systems, you can get caught in game mechanics a little bit more so. So, but yeah, as far as keeping older systems alive, that's great. And folks fans doing. Contributing and making their own settings and publishings and stuff like that. I think there's been some really great stuff that's come out of it and some great talent. So yeah, I'm all for it. Thumbs up.
And have you taken a look at Osric, and what are your thoughts about that?
I have not really done any in-depth analysis of Osric, so I don't want to go afield here and give an opinion.
Not a problem. And Doc Monwhite comes up with another question. What is your favorite official D&D setting?
I think this is going to be an easy one. It would be Greyhawk. That is where I spent the preponderance of my time adventuring. Again, playing with my dad was in Greyhawk. So I did play in Forgotten Realms a little bit when I was early years in the army in Germany. I played a little bit of Forgotten Realms. Good setting, but again, just most comfortable. Prefer my old Greyhawk setting.
Cool. Next question comes from Dave the Moderate. He wants to know: was there ever a point in your life while you were growing up and looked at gaming, how closely your family was involved, and just wanted to rebel and just give up on gaming?
Well, I don't know about give up on gaming, but I would say that certainly I have come to doing anything in the gaming business, quote unquote, pretty late in life, and I think that some of that, sure. My dad, it was my dad's life working as a young guy growing up. Yeah, of course, I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. I think a lot of folks want to follow in their parents' footsteps when they're growing up. But yeah, as I grew into adulthood, I decided to take my own career path, and I joined the military, and that has been something I've done for the last 23 years, either in a full or part-time status, and that's pretty much where my career path is. But however, when I did take a foray into writing with the lost city of Gaxmore, a decade ago, with my brother Ernie, just for fun, really. We were doing a campaign at the Dungeon Hobby Shop, or just the Lake Geneva. Oh, sorry, it was the Game Guild, not the Dungeon Hobby Shop. At that time, the game shop was called the Game Guild in Lake Geneva, where my brother was working. And we collaborated on this scenario, and we figured, well, we'll put this much work into it, let's publish it, and we did. But I didn't have a burning desire to continue publishing work, even though it was, there was opportunity out there. However, after my father passed away, after his death, it certainly it struck me, how important it was to me to try my hand at it and keep the Gygax name out there as in a creative way. And I thought that I had something that I had something that was worthwhile and worth putting out there. So I am more interested, and certainly my brother Ernie has expressed those same things, and we're really happy to be able to at this point in time bring some creative work from both of us to the gaming community at large. So maybe that's a longer answer than you wanted.
That was good. All right, next one comes from Graham Mills and many, many others. They want you to explain a little bit about Melf.
Okay, all right. So Melf was my second character that I played. The first character was Otis the Ranger. I first played him. It was in the village of Hamlet. Certainly it wasn't published yet. I think we were playtesting it, and I was probably 4 years old during that playtest. Maybe I was 5, and that was my first character. And I played him to 10th level as a Ranger Lord. That was pretty high level. And then we transitioned out, and I started playing Melf. Actually, Otis had an ignoble end. I was bugging my dad to go on an adventure, and he pulled out the Tomb of Horrors, which is a cool thing to do. So yeah, I guess maybe he had a bad day at the office. I don't know. So I poor Luke takes his ranger through the Tomb of Horrors, and I end up going down the hallway that transports all of your physical goods in one place and sends you to another. Ooh. And then I found my way to the room wall with levers, 3 levers, and I pushed those the wrong way, and I ended up naked at the bottom of a pit, so with no hope of escaping. So that was the end of poor Otis, and so I needed another character to play some couple of weeks later, and my dad broke up the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, and so I was playing that, and I'd rolled up a magic user and just started him off at a higher level, and I needed an assistant, or my dad said, well, you need a sidekick, you should have a henchman. So I had, just, make up a character, and I whipped up this fighter magic user elf, and I just called him Melf, which I need to say this because poor Jeff Leeson for years has said this, and it's fallen on deaf ears. I heard the name Melf because Jeff Leeson, a good family friend and game designer, had a character named Melf the Elf. So I thought this was just a henchman. So I said, Melf, that's a great name. This is just a throwaway character. Bam. So I threw Melf on the page and moved out. Unfortunately, the poor wizard that I was playing, that was the main adventure in the Barrier Peaks, ended up getting caught by security robots and imprisoned. And Melf fled, returned back to the city of Greyhawk, and I wasn't done adventuring because my character had gotten snatched up by security robots pretty quickly. So my dad pulled out his Castle Zagig, his Greyhawk Castle a book, and I went down and started adventuring in Greyhawk Castle, and worked my way up by adventuring through the dungeons there. And Melf became my main character. I took him through, what adventures did I go through besides Greyhawk? Sajkanth, Lost Temple of Thrisden, through the Looking Glass or the Magic Mirror or something like that. Was it the Dungeon Land, and through the Magic Mirror?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the UK. I think they're tournament modules.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I play tested a bunch of those, kind of that era of modules. So went through all those, a great time. So that's kind of the backstory of Melf. He then, of course, went on to, as he gained levels, and completed the Sajkanth scenario. He became part of the Red Rampart Guard of Mordenkainen and the Citadel of Eight, and kind of got tied in with those folks as well. So it's kind of interesting. But that's in a nutshell, that's a quick synopsis for Melf.
Okay, and then DM Angelo follows up. What can you tell us the story behind Melf's Acid Arrow?
Sure. As my brother Ernie's article in Gygax magazine number 2 talks about, if you had an idea for a spell, okay, great, no problem. You had to go ahead and sit down and write out what the spell effects you were looking for, and kind of flesh that out, and then you would have to spend a certain amount of time researching. And of course, there was a cost in gold and items to conduct that research in order for you to get this spell. So Melf's Acid Arrow, as I was probably casting a spell, if memory serves me correctly, and somebody shot me with an arrow, and it broke my spell, and that really irritated me as a player. So I said, well, geez, you know what? I think I need to. It might have even been a magic missile that somebody, and it was fast. So I said, you know what I need to do? I need to have a spell that I can basically shoot someone, and then not only will it affect them for the one round, I want a way to affect them for multiple rounds so that they can't cast spells at me. So I came up with an Acid Arrow that will do continuing damage. So therefore, if you obviously, that's good. The idea is that you're going to be targeting the spellcasters and hindering their ability to throw spells for several melee rounds, thereby giving you an advantage to close the distance and kill them. So that was Melf's Melf's Acid Arrow. Melf's Minute Meteors is another one that I think kind of has an interesting background. While adventuring through Castle Greyhawk, mapping was very important, and of course, area of effects for your spells is also very important. So, unfortunately, a lot of times, I would throw upon reaching 5th level, I would throw Fireball into rooms. Well, my dad was pretty tricky, and even though a room might be 30 by 30, the ceiling sometimes would be 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever. So here I am, like, I'm 10 feet down the corridor, no chance of me getting hit with this Fireball, and I launch it into the room. Bam, I get, fire damage and have to save for all of my items if I fail my magic saving throw, right?
Right.
I don't know if you guys do that, but yes, we really had to roll for every single item on our character sheet if we failed a saving throw.
That's how it was supposed to be done, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer. I mean, it was very sad. I still remember losing my Displacer Cloak to the Gorgamira, I think it was, in Sajkanth. That was very sad. It made me... I did fight down to... I had 6 hit points left, but I wouldn't retreat because I said, this thing's going to die or I'm going to die because it got my Displacer Cloak. I was very irritated. But anyway, so I was tired of hitting myself with area of effect damage, particularly from Fireball. So I was like, well, isn't there a way to make this into a smaller Fireball? He's like, well, you could research it and do that. So once again, go through the little process, you flesh out what you want, and basically I took that spell and was able to break it into into a subset of smaller meteors so that you wouldn't be, you could use them in a smaller confined area without blasting yourself. So that's how those came about. Just from gameplay, dungeoneering, and then you just sit down, write out the spell, do your research, and roll some dice, and you come up with, you'd obviously write out the spell, type it up, and give it to you, and you can put it in your spell book.
Interesting. Never would have thought about how you did. Okay, now our next question comes from Timothy Conley. What is your favorite thing about Branamore's Bog?
Well, thank you, Timothy, for that question. I would say that Branamore's Bog. Timothy and I have been corresponding back and forth primarily on Facebook, and he'll just zing some ideas past me for his world, for his adventure that he's doing with his folks, I believe in New York City. And I'll reply back, and we'll figure out a few things. And one of those areas was Branamore's Bog. We figured out how that came about, and that was, if my memory serves me correctly, that was from a lost artifact that generated water, and was like a Everfold flask or something like that was opened and tipped over in some evil crypt, and to flood it out or whatever. And so now it's Branamore's Bog, but there's some evil lich or something like that in the middle of it that is infests the bog and makes it all dark and evil place. So that's where that question came from.
Excellent. All right, and finally, last question, as Jason knows, I like to ask my little last goofy question to all our guests. And that question is, if you could be a household appliance, which one would you be and why?
It's an excellent question. I think I would probably be a TV in the house, because I would be able to provide entertainment and knowledge to folks 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'd be the focal point of the room. I like to be the center of attention anyway. I'm an extrovert. And so people pay a lot of attention to me to get a lot of use, and I'd impart a lot of happiness and enjoyment to folks.
Cool. Would you be like a plasma or an LED? No, I'm just kidding. I was going to worry about that.
Definitely be a high-definition edge-lit LED TV.
All right.
At least 50 inches, if not larger.
So is there anything else you guys want to tell the audience? What could be, possible things in the future, or anything else you want to just blurt out? No?
Wait, I just want to say thank you for picking up Gygax magazine and reading it. I think issue number 1 was a lot of fun. I'm really proud of issue number 2, and I just think they're getting better and better. Issue number 3 is going to be very strong as well. So if you haven't picked up an issue, go out, order it, go to your local hobby store, ask them to carry it if they don't have it, or even get the PDF and just review it. I think you will enjoy it. If you're listening to this podcast, I think it's definitely going to be up your alley.
And Jason, any closing words?
I couldn't say it any better.
All right. Well, Luke, thank you for coming on the show and telling us about your campaign world and history, pretty much.
It was my pleasure, Vince. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
Is there a way someone, if they want to contact you other than through Gygax magazine, they can look you up on Facebook, obviously? Do you have a website that someone can go to look you up? Or
I don't have a website, but you're more than welcome to hit me up on Facebook and shoot me a message. Many people have done that, and I respond to them. I think I helped a gentleman name his drow character the other day when I was at work. I was walking around and by myself, I was like, okay, let me think of a quick drow name. And for him. So, hey, no request is too unusual, and it's nice. So, yeah, please, if you have something, feel free to write me on Facebook. Is a good way, and I'll be in touch.
Cool. Jason, I thank you for taking the time to come on here as well to talk about Gygax magazine, too.
Hey, thanks a lot, Vince. Thanks for having us on. It's always fun to be back.
Absolutely. The fans always say, "Where's Jason? We want more Jason." So there.
It was funny. I one of the guys I was playing Nuclear War with, we sat down just as we were about to play. We were talking a little bit, and he turns to me. He's like, "You sound familiar. Were you on a podcast?" So there's fans of the podcast all over.
Yeah, I remember we had that when we first. What was it, Gen Con 2010 when we first went, and our show was just kind of reaching everybody at that point, and we were handing out those little Well, we weren't handing out. Sorry, we were accidentally leaving them on tables. Those
Dropping them strategically in good places.
Yeah.
Because we were not handing out flyers. That would be wrong.
That would be absolutely wrong at Gen Con. That's right. I was talking to one of the directors of, I think it was a horror game. The guy's like, "Hey, aren't you on the podcast about D&D?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I just recognize your voice. Is there a guy, Jason, that goes along with you?" I'm like, "Yeah," he's pointing to you. You were kind of walking over. So it was kind of cool that someone recognizes your voice from a show.
Yep. They always look at me and go, "I thought you were better looking."
Oh. Ouch. Anyway.
All right. Thanks, Vince.
All right, keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at rfipodcast.com or contact us on our forums at osrgaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.